So during one of the trips that I had visited my aunt and uncle in Kentucky, my aunt had just become a massage therapist and she gave me a massage and it absolutely blew my mind because I'd never been touched in a positive way. I mean, I'd only been beaten by my family. Like I'd never had that anyone make me feel that good physically, and I was obsessed with it and I wanted to learn how to do it. And so my aunt started teaching me how to do massage, and I started getting really good at it. And then when I went down to live with my grandmother, I started working on some people here and there. And then I started getting my weight back to somewhat normal. And then I went to visit my family in uh, San Diego, where they were living. And by this time, like my relationship with my dad was very strained. Because I wasn't following in line with all of his preachings anymore, and uh some really powerful things happened while I was there. One of them was I was learning about iridology. It's a study of the lines in your iris of your eye. And there was a guy named Bernard Jensen who was like 80 years old, and he taught people, how to stay healthy and eat healthy and about iridology. And he was having a conference. And so I went to it, and there was thousands of people there, and it was his birthday. So for his birthday, he had a performance in front of 1,000 people, like an audience of like 1,000 people in this big room. They were African dancers, and first they started coming down the aisles next to us with their drums, walking with their drums and playing these rhythms, and powerful drums sounded amazing. And they get up on stage, and then the dancers come down, and the dancers get up on stage, and they're doing this African dance barefoot. They're jumping and they're shaking and they're undulating their hips, and the look in their eyes was like they were seeing God. There was so much light coming out of them. And it's so primal, but it's so spiritual at the same time, like the mixture of heaven and earth. And I'm watching this, and just tears just started screaming down my face. And I turned to the lady next to me, and I was like, "Do you think white people can do this?" I was so moved. And I went back to where I was staying with my family, and I told you that the guy who owned the property and was living next to them was also a big neo-Nazi guy. And he had heard about my Ouija board experience, and he called me over and wanted to talk to me. He wanted to know about how to use the Ouija board because he wanted to contact Hitler. And by this time, I was just like, "Oh Lord!" And then he had a book on his shelf on witchcraft. And I went and pulled the book off the shelf, and I opened it up. And the first page it opened to had a whole thing about Hitler and how Hitler used witchcraft to stupefy people, saying that the swastika that he used, it was originally a Native American symbol, that he flipped it around so that, according to this book, the way that the swastika was moving, the way he used it, it actually depletes your energy when you look at it. And that's how he was able to control so many people, according to this book. But the fact that he had this book on witchcraft, this is this guy that my dad was all tight with and worked for, and the big Nazi. And previously, he had, I think I'd visited them twice in San Diego. And one of the previous times I visited them, he had given me, when I was still more numb and just dead, he'd given me a bunch of Nazi books that he wanted me to deliver to people in Europe and in Tokyo. And I was just, I don't know what I was even thinking about it. I can't even remember why I would even do it. I just, okay, and I did. And the people that I delivered these books to looked like crazy people. They looked really like not stable, normal people. And there was even a point in time when I was living in Paris that same guy, my dad's neighbor, came to Paris, and he was going to a ball for, I think it was Le Pen's birthday. Le Pen was this total Nazi guy that was in power in some way, shape, or form in Paris, in France. I don't remember. So I was like 16 or 17, all dressed up at this ball at some palace in Paris for this Nazi leader. And I had nothing to do with any of it. I don't know what I was doing. It was just my parents and their friends and me going along with it. I think it was the first time that I had come back to visit my family in San Diego. My dad forced me to put on a dress up nice, and he wanted me to go to have to mass with some rich guy he was trying to get money out of. And my dad hated the Catholic Church because his mother was a Catholic, and she went to church every weekend, or every Sunday she was at church, and she never learned to hug her son. She was a very cold woman, and whatever other things went along with the Catholic Church, he hated it, and he always talked bad about it. But now he's got this guy he wants to get money out of, so he tells me that I need to dress up and keep my mouth shut and go to this meeting. And my mom stood there, heard every bit of it, and I was crying. I was so angry and so upset. I didn't want to go. Then he wanted me to go stay with his friend who he was trying to sell me to earlier, his friend up in Lake Tahoe who had a place. And he said, oh yeah, you can go up there with your friend. You'll get a little vacation, and I want you to sweet talk him into finishing my screenplay. My dad was writing a screenplay about blowing up abortion clinics. And this guy was affiliated with people in Hollywood, and he wanted him to finish it. So he was sending me, I guess I was 16 at the time, daughter, up to stay with this guy who he knows was trying to buy me. He's in his 30s, this totally like lecherous dude. Sends me up there with my friend. And the only reason I was willing to go is because I wanted to go to Lake Tahoe. And also I'm a damaged, spaced out chick. And while I was up there, my friend who was from Utah, she was 17 or 18. She had gotten pregnant, and her family sent her away to have the baby because she was a Mormon, and she had to have the baby and put it up for adoption and then go back and not tell anyone. That was the deal. So she's with me at this guy's place, and she's pregnant, and he knows it, and he's trying to bang her, and he's trying to bang me, and he's telling me, your dad says I can buy you for $30,000, and I'm like, you can't even catch me, and I gave him such a hard time. And one time we leg wrestled him, and we leg wrestled because I was like, you got nothing on me, and I sent him flying across the room, but he was hitting on me the whole time, and I was fighting him off, and I guess I was just used to that reality. So this last time I was in San Diego, I had this experience with the African dancers that just blew my mind. And right before I left, I was going to go back to Europe to do a little more modeling. And I had a big blowout with my dad. I was telling him about a guy that I had met in Kentucky, and he just kept going on and on about how that guy was just trying to get in my pants, and that's all he was trying to do. And it wasn't blatant. I mean, maybe he was, but my dad it's just really kind of twisted that he was trying to protect me from this guy. Meanwhile, he's trying to sell me to the other guy. And so we got in a big argument over it because he was trying to say this guy was a really bad dude. And I was saying, you don't know him. You don't even know. And you think you know everything. And that just, you're not allowed to talk back to my dad. Not back then. And he just lost it and started throwing stuff everywhere. And I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And I walked out of there, and I felt so much more powerful. Because I'd spent a lot of time being really, really terrified of my dad. And I stood up to him, and I walked out of there in one piece. And then I went back to Europe. And I was going to do a little more modeling. When I first landed in Germany, I found an African dance class in Germany, in Munich. And I think I was in Munich, yeah. And I went to the class, and there's all these Germans, and they're funky, they're dancing, they're getting it. And I'm like, wow, well, if the Germans could do it, I can do it. and there was an African guy teaching, and so I started taking the classes, and I absolutely loved it. And then I got booked to do a catalog job. I believe it was on the Canary Islands, yeah. And when I got there, they told me I was overweight because I had compensated as, first I went from being anorexic and now I was eating a lot. And they told me I needed to lose weight or they couldn't use me. And I'm staying in this big fancy resort on the Canary Islands, and I think I've been there a number of times before actually for modeling jobs, and that was the last time. So I got really depressed, and I went for a walk down the beach. And I was walking down the beach, I started going outside of the resort area, and I started getting into a more, like, up on the hill, you could see it was kind of like a ghetto up on the hill. And where I was on the beach, there was all these rocks jutting out. So I had to walk out into the ocean to go around the rocks to keep going. And as I got way out into the ocean, I could see this humongous German Shepherd coming down the hill from the ghetto looking area, growling and barking and looking like it's foaming at the mouth. And I'm standing way out there in the ocean. I'm thinking, but I'm only knee deep in water. And I'm thinking it's going to stop when it gets to the water's edge. And it didn't. It kept coming. It was coming straight for me. It was flying through the water, growling. And I just knew I'm going to be dead. If I try and run, I'm dead. So I stood there, and it was probably, 20 feet away from me maximum. I stood there and I yelled as loud as I could. I was like, ah! I mean, I just ferociously let it out, and it stopped. And then I did it again. Ah! And then it just looked at me, and then it just turned around and it just walked back. And I was like, yeah, that's right. And this was a huge turning point for me in my life. Because, the last time I stood up to my dad, I mean, just saying, I'm not going to talk with you, you think you know everything, that was huge. Like, you just don't do that with my dad. And I did it. And then with this German Shepherd, seeing how powerful I was when I could just really defend myself. Like, before I was a complete and total victim. And I really think a lot of my whole fruitarian diet stuff was just me just trying to feel good. And the only way I could do it was to escape my body, because I had so much anger inside and so much powerlessness and whatever. So that was a really powerful, life-changing experience. And I keep telling you about all these powerful, life-changing experiences I had, but I did within the short amount of time that I was modeling. I wasn't there to be rich and famous and be a model. I was there to get out of my environment and have, like, all these, just because I was seeking really hard. I was seeking God. I was seeking answers. I was seeking love. I was seeking health. And just things just kept coming to me. And so this started a whole new chapter in my life of expressing my emotions and getting real about them. So when I went back to Europe, to Germany, I thought about it a lot, and I was like, I don't want to model, and I think I want to go to massage school. And I found an ad in a magazine that was talking, it was for the New Mexico School of Natural Therapeutics. And the ad had a picture of an Indian pueblo, and it said, study massage therapy and natural therapeutics in enchanting New Mexico. And I was so drawn to it. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I had the money to do it from modeling. So I left Europe and I signed up for the school in New Mexico. And I went to New Mexico to study natural therapeutics and massage therapy at the school.